25. How NBA stars are breaking free from sneaker contracts. For decades, the relationship between NBA players and shoe companies worked one way. The brand found you young, built you up, put you in a contract full of clauses you didn't fully understand, and kept you there as long as you were commercially useful. That was the deal. Everybody knew it. Almost nobody had the leverage to change it. That's over now. Or at least it's changing faster than anyone in the boardroom in Beaverton, Oregon would like to admit. Players are walking away from Nike, letting contracts expire and not renewing them, starting their own brands, negotiating shorter deals with exit rights that didn't exist 5 years ago. The dynamic that ran professional basketball's commercial infrastructure for 30 years is cracking, and the players are the ones doing the cracking.
You know what? The thing is, I never wore Nike shoes until I signed a Nike contract. All through college, we wore Converse. And up to that point, my favorite shoe was an Adidas shoe.
Today, we're talking about how it happened, who led it, and why the brands that built empires off NBA talent are suddenly in a position they've never been in before. To understand why this matters, you first need to understand how total the brand's control used to be. And then, look at the moment one player changed the whole calculation. Part 1. The old deal and why it held. For most of NBA history, a shoe deal meant the player needed the brand more than the brand needed any individual player. Nike had Jordan. Reebok had Iverson. The brand's ability to manufacture cultural relevance was something no player could replicate alone. You needed their distribution, their marketing budgets, their retail relationships, their entire machine. Players accepted terms that gave away enormous commercial control because the alternative was no meaningful deal at all. The power dynamic wasn't even negotiated most of the time. It was assumed. The brand showed up with a contract, the player's team tried to improve the margins, but the core structure stayed intact. Exclusivity, appearance obligations, performance benchmarks, brand-controlled release strategy, all of it. What held this in place was distribution. Before social media, reaching an audience at scale required a brand's infrastructure. You couldn't build cultural relevance without television ad budgets. Without the brand's ecosystem behind you, you were commercially invisible. That dependency was a brand's real leverage, not the contract language. The fact that without them, nobody outside your own city knew you existed. Then, one player decided to test what happened if he walked away from the biggest brand in the sport. What happened next surprised everyone, including Nike. Part 2. How Curry changed the math. In 2013, Stephen Curry was a Nike athlete on a deal worth around $4 million a year. Underpaid for his trajectory, but he went to Nike to discuss a new arrangement. The meeting that followed became one of the most retold stories in sports business. A Nike representative mispronounced his name, called him Stefan. A presentation slide still had Kevin Durant's name on it from a previous pitch. Curry was being shown, clearly if unintentionally, that he was not a priority. He walked. Signed with Under Armour for the same money but with a brand willing to make him the centerpiece. The Curry One launched in 2015. After his unanimous MVP season and the Warriors' 73-win record in 2016, Under Armour's basketball revenue exploded. Forbes estimated the Curry line was generating over $1 billion annually for Under Armour at its peak. What that story proved was specific. A player with the right profile and the right audience didn't need Nike to build a billion-dollar commercial identity. He could do it with a smaller brand that gave him room to be the main character rather than a supporting act. That lesson did not go unlearned around the league. Curry proved players had more leverage than they thought. What came next was players using that leverage not just to pick better brands, but to own something outright. Part 3. From deals to ownership. LeBron has a lifetime Nike deal, the most famous shoe arrangement in the sport. But what people discuss less is what he built alongside it. Spring Hill Company, equity stakes in Blaze Pizza and Lobo's 1707 Tequila, a commercial portfolio structured so the Nike deal is one revenue stream he controls rather than the whole story. He used Nike's platform while building ownership positions outside of it. The player who took this furthest in the shoe space specifically is Kawhi Leonard. After his New Balance deal gave him significant creative input,
because Kawhi Leonard had an announcement this morning.
Signed with New Balance.
Leonard registered his own hand logo as a trademark and fought Nike in court over who owned the design. He won. A player went to court against one of the most powerful brands on earth over the rights to his own image and came out on the right side. That case, settled in 2023, sent a direct message to every player in the league about what was negotiable if you were willing to fight for it. The generation entering the league now grew up watching their predecessors get locked into brand structures that stripped away creative control and exit rights. They're arriving at negotiations with better legal teams, more specific demands, and a fundamentally different sense of what they're worth. Shorter deal terms, royalty clauses, and ownership structures are no longer asks that brands can laugh out of the room. The legal wins and ownership moves are important, but the single biggest structural change in this power shift isn't in any courtroom. It's in a player's phone. Part 4. Social media killed the brand's real leverage. The old system held because brands controlled distribution. Without their infrastructure, you were invisible to consumers. That was the actual source of the power, not the contract clauses. Social media eliminated that dependency. LeBron has over 150 million Instagram followers. Curry has over 20 million across platforms. A player today can announce a collaboration, drop behind-the-scenes content, respond to fans in real time, and drive sales directly from his own channels without the brand doing a single thing. The brand's distribution is still valuable. However, it's no longer irreplaceable. So, this changes everything about the negotiation. Players are less willing to sign 10-year exclusivity deals when they know their own platform generates commercial value the brand can't easily replicate. Shorter terms are becoming more common. Exit rights that were essentially unheard of in standard shoe contracts a decade ago are now part of serious negotiations. The shift isn't dramatic on any individual deal. Across the league, it's consistent enough that brands are adjusting how they structure offers. Kyrie Irving's move to Anta in 2023 is the clearest recent example. Anta is a Chinese brand with no meaningful American retail footprint. Due to this, the average NBA enthusiast wouldn't expect him to sit in the same room with Anta executives. But times have changed. In 2005, that move would have been career-ending commercially for an American player. However, in 2023, Kyrie had enough direct audience reach that he could make Anta relevant in the US through his own channels, rather than needing a brand to bring distribution to him. The deal inverted the old relationship entirely. The real argument. This isn't a story about players being ungrateful or brands being villains. It's a story about information and infrastructure. Brands held leverage for 30 years because they controlled both. Players didn't understand what they were signing and couldn't survive commercially without the machine behind them. Both of those things changed at the same time. A generation of players arrived at the table with the knowledge of what happened to their predecessors. They came with better representation, more financial literacy, and direct audience access that made brand infrastructure useful, but not essential. That's a different negotiating position than any previous generation of players has occupied. Nike still has the largest roster in the sport. Adidas still has deals across the league, but deal lengths are getting shorter. Creative clauses are becoming standard asks. Players are requesting royalty structures and exit rights that the contracts of 15 years ago never offered. Some brands are agreeing because the alternative is losing the player to a competitor, or worse, to the player's own venture. That last outcome is the one that genuinely worries the brands. A player who owns his own shoe company doesn't need them at all. The sneaker industry built itself on the idea that players needed it more than it needed any individual player. For a long time, that was completely true. The distribution was real, the visibility was real, the dependency was real. What Curry proved, what Kawhi's lawsuit proved, what direct-to-consumer social reach proved is that the dependency was never permanent. It was a function of a particular era's information and distribution landscape. That era is ending. Here's what I want in the comments. Do you think we'll see a current all-star level player launch a fully independent shoe company in the next 5 years? Not a collaboration, not a sub-brand. A company he owns entirely. Because the pieces are already in place. It's just a matter of who goes first. Name your pick below.